throughout all of this, trial and error is a huge part of it. And I really want to validate that trial and error is how we learn, how we grow. It's okay. So much of this path is about embracing mistakes, about accepting that failure is part of the process, that failure is part of the process of success. And I've learned so much from my successes and from my failures, from my falling flat. And I really, really encourage anyone listening to just really incorporate all of those on her path, because we live in just such a success-oriented world. And while success is wonderful, I really have learned more about myself and more about the work that I do through my failures. And my failures really inform my successes, so they go hand in hand.
Welcome to Herself, a space for women to have deep conversations about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, so you can become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. After being in business for over 2 decades, I've learned, as you likely have too, that as you grow your business grows you in unexpected, often challenging, yet miraculous ways. Here, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way, so you can grow a business that's abundant and sustainable while allowing you to be a force for good in the world. I'll give you simple, actionable strategies, as well as wisdom and inspiration to help you root into your wholeness, lead from your values, and work in ways that feel deeply aligned, so you can bring your true self into the world through your business and in every area of your life.
Today, I wanted to share with you a topic that's very close to my heart, and it is the topic of business and entrepreneurship. I have been in a business of some sort since I was a child. I started by creating little side businesses for myself, decorating and selling t-shirts, shoes, jewelry boxes, selling candy, babysitting. I just loved creating things and sharing them with people. I loved making money, saving money, buying things with my money. And then when I was 23, I became fully self-employed for the first time. And I was teaching yoga in Thailand, and I was also doing freelance writing, mostly for Yoga Journal, but also for some other magazines. And things have just grown and built since then. And this podcast is one aspect of what I have created as a result of my self-employment. And I really brought everything online in 2008. That was the year that I moved back to the US from Thailand. I was 30. I had been living in Thailand for 9 years, and I moved to Boulder, Colorado. And I hired a business coach to help me to make that transition to coming more fully online, because most of my income was dependent upon big events that I would teach in Asia and in Thailand in particular. I led an annual teacher training, annual retreat, and those were my biggest revenue sources. And so I needed to figure out how I could replace those, how I could make a sustainable living here in the US. So I had a business coach to help me do that, who knew a lot about online marketing. He was definitely an early adopter of online marketing, and he taught me how to have a blog, how to create a WordPress website, how to create an online course. I started doing teleseminars and all of that kind of stuff. And what I want to speak about today are the main business lessons. I'd say the 5 biggest lessons that I've learned since 2008. So the 5 biggest lessons I've learned in the past 15 years about having an online business and being self-employed, being an entrepreneur. Overall, this path is one of the greatest paths of personal development. I'd say that next to, or even just after, intimate partnership, self-employment is just a massive avenue for growth. It brings one up against her edges constantly, and continues to ask me to be vulnerable, to really be clear about my values, to really connect with what feels an integrity for me, and to continue to up my game in various ways. I also view this path of my professional path as also an expression of my spiritual path. I really relate to it as a path of service and devotion, of really, in a refined way, walking my talk, staying grounded. And I have experienced that teaching and sharing is really the final stage of healing and learning anything. It's when I teach something, it also heals me at a deeper level, and it also helps me to embody different lessons and teachings in a much fuller way. So over the past 15 years, I have changed a lot, for sure. The world has changed a lot. And I know that all of you have changed a lot. I know some of you have been part of this community for those 15 years, and some maybe even longer. Throughout all of this, trial and error is a huge part of it. And I really want to validate that trial and error is how we learn, how we grow. It's okay. So much of this path is about embracing mistakes, about accepting that failure is part of the process, that failure is part of the process of success. And I've learned so much from my successes and from my failures, from my falling flat. And I really, really encourage anyone listening to just really incorporate all of those on her path, because we live in just such a success-oriented world. And while success is wonderful, I really have learned more about myself and more about the work that I do through my failures. And my failures really inform my successes, so they go hand in hand. Since this is a big passion of mine, I do spend a lot of my time studying business and online business and marketing in particular. It's a huge passion of mine. I do it for fun. I'm kind of always thinking about my business in some form or another. And you can just ask my partner. It's like it comes into most conversations on walks and over dinners. I'm just always thinking about my community and what I'm creating next and how to refine things, and always exploring how to stay current and how to stay relevant and staying up to date with technology. And at the same time, not chasing, shiny objects, not giving into shiny object syndrome, but really staying true to myself while staying up to date and being in this continual process of tweaking and refining. So like I said, today I want to share with you the 5 biggest lessons that I've learned along the way over these past 15 years. Of course, there are so many other lessons, but these are some of the big ones that I wanted to highlight. And if I could go back to the beginning, these are things that I would do differently, or that I would tell my past self. These are things that I would share with someone who was just starting out or wanting to build and expand from where they are. I also want to say that while that is so, overall, I have a disposition of trust. I trust that I am where I am now, and that I was where I was then, and that both are okay. There's nothing wrong with either of them. And I trust that these are just lessons that I had to learn over time. So are you ready? Let's get into the first lesson. The first big thing that I've learned over these past 15 years is the importance of being consistent and repeating and refining along the way. So when I'm coaching someone in business, when I'm working with one of my business mentoring clients, I really stress to her the importance of staying the course and showing up consistently over time. And there was a period of time not that long ago, it was about 2018 to 2020, thereabouts, where I strongly stepped back from my work. And I don't regret that. That was something that I absolutely needed to do. I went through a lot of challenges in my life. I was getting the strong inner guidance that I needed to do that I needed to step back. I needed to significantly dial down to create space for myself for deeper healing, and that I was not in a place where I could really serve others. And I do not regret that. I wish for others that you don't have that experience, that you don't have that level of life challenge, although I acknowledge that it does happen. And that's not what I'm talking about today. I will talk about it in the future. I write a lot more about that in my new book that's coming out next year, A Handbook for the Heartbroken, because I know that's something that happens to many of us when we go through periods of big change or loss or transition. And even in that time, there was a way that I was consistent at a very minimal level. I was still teaching weekly yoga classes. At that time, I was in Santa Barbara. I was still teaching biannual retreats at a center in Colorado that I've been teaching at for a decade. And I was sending out emails to my community, just informing when I was doing something like that. However, when I'm in a more regular flow of life, as I am now again, my consistency looks different than that. And it means, for me, consistency right now looks like publishing a podcast twice a month and sending out emails to my community each time one of those podcasts come out. It also looks like sending out a monthly email newsletter and posting on social media at least 3 times a week. For me, that's what consistency looks like. And I recommend that to my clients, to find a schedule that is doable for you. So I know a lot of people do weekly content and post daily on social media. And maybe there'll be a time in my life when I do that. But up until this time in my life, that has never felt sustainable for me. It doesn't feel sustainable for me to do 1 podcast a week. It doesn't feel sustainable for me to post on social media once a day. And again, maybe that will change over time if I have more support, if I have less projects that I'm doing. But right now, the schedule that I have for consistency feels like it's doable. Feels like I can meet it. So it's like finding the schedule for you that feels doable and just showing up regularly over time. Because now I have been showing up regularly, again, even before I brought my business online in 2008, starting much earlier than that, around in 2003 or so, or even 2001, I started having a weekly newsletter. I built a website. And so some of you have been getting my email newsletter for like 20 years. And there's something about that just showing up over the years, over the decades, that really helps to build momentum, and it really helps to give you a place in whatever sphere you are working in. Now, some areas of learning here, because this is what it's about, is that there were a lot of ways, there were a lot of times where I would create things and then I dismantle them because maybe I had a new inspiration, or I'm someone who changes and grows a lot. And I felt like I needed to recreate things in order to kind of represent who I am now. And in some learnings over the past couple of years, particularly with a longtime female business coach, Kendall Summerhawk, she created something called the sacred money archetypes. And I took a quiz about that, and I learned that one of my sacred money archetypes is the maverick. I have a tie, for those of you who are familiar with the archetypes, between the ruler, who's very much about what I was talking about in my introduction to this podcast, which is very much about just being very business focused and kind of always having my work at top of mind and working a lot, not in a workaholic way, but just because I love it. And also the maverick archetype, which is like wanting novelty, wanting adventure, and wanting to create new things all the time. And in retrospect, I wish that I had stuck with some of the things that I created and refined them over a longer period of time. And I look at some colleagues or some people in my industry who have maybe been offering the same course for like 10 years. And so they've had 10 years of really building and refining that one offering. I've never offered anything over that period of time. That would be a challenge for me. That would be an edge for me. That's what I'm playing at now. And so now I'm looking at how can I kind of bring novelty, bring excitement within things that I've already created, and to even let things be a little bit boring sometimes. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing, but to really repeat structure over time so that it can improve, and so that I'm not constantly recreating the wheel, which is a lot of work, between launching a program, creating a program, delivering the program, all of it, but to give myself time to be consistent with these different programs over a longer period of time through this repeat and refine process. So that's the first one. The second big lesson is, if I could go back in time, right from the get-go, I would practice profit first. And for those of you who have not heard of profit first, I encourage you, as soon as possible, get the book Profit First by Mike, I'm going to try to say his name, Michalowicz. But if you just look, I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but if you just look up the book Profit First on Amazon or just Google it, you will find a wealth of information. And a business mentor recommended this book to me several years ago. I got the book, but I didn't implement it right away. And I only officially fully integrated it a few years ago when I started to revive my work after taking a couple of years off. And in the past, when money would come in, I would not have a plan for it. There was a certain amount that I would pay myself each month. I would pay myself a salary each month. But the rest of the money in my business checking account would kind of be like a free-for-all. I would kind of just pay expenses and then just, I don't know what I would do with the rest. And so I had some surprise big tax bills on years when I had big income as I started to have over time. And again, I just did not have a clear plan for what my money was going to be doing. And so when I started rebuilding a few years ago, I knew I wanted to do things differently. And right away, a big piece of that was implementing the Profit First framework. So basically how this works is you determine a percentage different percentages for the money that comes into your business. Percentages for owner's pay, for your business expenses, for profit, which you can use for whatever you want, or can be used even for business savings, percentage for taxes. I also have a percentage for my investments, particularly my retirement investments. And these percentages have tweaked and changed a little bit over the past few years as my needs have changed a little bit, but I always have a certain percentage. And so any money that comes into my business checking account, because I definitely advocate having separate personal checking and savings accounts and separate business checking and savings accounts, and also separate credit cards for each. So anytime money comes into my business checking account, I automatically divide that according to the percentages, and a percentage then goes into my personal checking account as owner's pay. A percentage goes into my business expense account. Separate goes into my business profit savings account, my tax savings account, and my retirement investments. And this way, I make sure that everything gets taken care of and there's no surprises. So tax time now is no stress. I have all the money waiting in that savings account. I just transfer it to the IRS or transfer it to the state, wherever it needs to go. Again, there's no surprises, no stress. I'm regularly contributing to my retirement investments, and I am making sure that I'm paying myself a certain amount so that I can save money, so that I can pay personal expenses, buy things personally that I would like to have, or I can pay my recurring business expenses and invest in things in my business that I wanted to invest in. So definitely engage in this practice of profit first right from the start. It is not that complicated, and it's not hard to implement. It does take a little bit of discipline to sit down, and you can even just skim the book, and there's also a bunch of YouTube videos about it now. A lot of other people are teaching this, but to really make sure ultimately that you get intimate with your money, because we put a lot of work into making our money, but then it's important that we don't go unconscious once we do actually make that money. And we make sure that we make the best use of that money that comes in. And so I also really encourage a weekly rhythm of tracking your income and your expenses, even if you do have a bookkeeper. In the past, I also had a bookkeeper, but I was not that intimate on a weekly basis with really looking over my books, which I do now as well. And I'm very hands-on with my numbers. And I feel that it's really, really important to be intimate with our finances, not to put our heads in the sand. So the third biggest lesson that I've learned over time is to make sure to get the right support. And I have had times along my business journey where I have had support either through a one-on-one business mentor and or a professional community. And the times of my biggest growth and satisfaction have come when I've had both, when I've had both a business mentor and a professional community to be a part of. And business mentors really help me to move in a more streamlined way with more accountability towards my goals. And I'm working with a coach and in a professional community now. And I'm just in a period of a lot of concentration, of more accelerated growth, of more concentrated action taking. And I know that I just get so much out of these periods when I invest in myself in these ways. And this gives me places not only with my mentor and professional community to bounce ideas off of, but also to get inspiration from them and to hear about things that are working for them or not working for them, different technology that they're using, different roadblocks that they're facing or how they've overcome certain things. And also to get moral support if I share about something that I'm trying or something that I feel nervous about, to get that support and encouragement from people, to have people checking in with me, because entrepreneurship can be lonely at times and can feel like we're working in a silo. And I know that I just feel so much more connected with myself, with my work, with other people when I have this kind of support in place. And just like in my personal life, where I like to have some combination of one-on-one and group support, feel like the same is true in business life. And like I shared with you earlier in this episode, when I first brought my business online in 2008, I did that with the support of a coach, someone who knew how to do what I wanted to do, and that helped to streamline and accelerate the process. So it just didn't take me as long. There wasn't as much trial and error. I could get direct real-time feedback. I could learn things that were more relevant and up to date. I can learn about how to do things like teleseminars, which were more in trend at that time. I could learn things about how to do automated email responses, which again were not a common thing, or create a blog, again, which that was also not a common thing at the time. And so that helped to bring me more towards the front edge of kind of pioneers and new emerging women in the field of online marketing. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't hired support. So I've always made more money as a result of getting that support. And again, business investments are really important in that way. It's like what I put into my business is going to determine what I get out of it. So the fourth piece of this lesson is to really follow my heart. And I know this is not really conventional business advice, but the business that I run is not conventional. And that's been one of my challenges over the years, and it's also been one of my blessings. Most of the business coaches that I've worked with have not fully understood this piece. So it's something that I've had to really integrate and incorporate on my own. Because this kind of work that I do, my heart has to be in it. It has to be in it. Because feminine spiritual practice is all about living from our hearts. And if I'm not following my heart, coming from my heart, I can feel it. And my community can feel it, even if not at a conscious level. And of course, there's times when my heart hasn't been in it. And that's okay. I mean, that's true for all of us. There's times when I've done things because I felt like I should, because I wanted to try something that I heard from a business coach or community were good things to try, and you don't know until you try something. or times when I felt like I had to do something maybe because I needed the money, or I needed to do it for some reason or another. So I don't shame myself for that. I don't judge myself for that, criticize myself for that. I know that that's part of my own learning process and sometimes my life circumstances. And I've also in my life not had another income to rely on. I have always made my own money. And so if I haven't met my income goals at different times, there's not something else that I can fall back on. And that has been a blessing in a lot of ways because it has really forced me to work through different blocks that I have and forced me to keep pressing forward. And I don't feel like I would have done nearly as much as I've done in my career had that not been the case, had I not had to, because I didn't have something else to fall back on. And at the same time, I know that times when I've done things that my heart hasn't been in, things haven't gone as well. And again, that's okay, but it's just feedback for me. And again, it always points me to the knowing that I have to feel my heart in whatever I'm doing. Like I have to love what I'm doing, at least to some extent. And so I really feel into if I'm creating a sales page for a course or a program, I need to feel that I love that sales page. I need to love my offer. I just created a new website and it's like I have to love my website before I share it with people. And even to love a podcast episode, like right now I'm loving sharing this episode with you, or I need to love an email that I write to my community or a social media post. And yes, there are times where I send emails that I don't love, or I record a podcast that I don't love, or social media posts that I don't love. And I can feel that. And so it's learning to have more of a fine-tuned radar. Like, do I love this? Is my heart in this? Does this feel really aligned? And I've learned that it's not about making things mechanical or transactional. It's really a different way of doing business. And that's where it's helpful to have a community of people who are thinking in these same lines and who can help to support me in this and encourage me in this, and who understand what I'm saying when I speak to the importance of this, again, because this is not a usual way of doing business, and my business is not a usual business. So the fifth and final lesson that I have learned is the importance of having really good boundaries. And this comes from a lot of crashing and burning. I know that when I'm plugged in all the time, when my attention becomes like a ping pong ball, going between emails, Slack messages, Asana project management tasks with my team, communications with my clients and students, social media, I become a dimmed down version of myself. I get tired. I start to feel resentful. I cannot really think clearly. And my heart starts to get more blocked and clouded over. So having good boundaries is a huge piece of being able to be in my heart in my work, and to be able to listen to my heart in my work. I need a certain amount of space and quiet for that to happen. I'm sure that you can relate to that. So I have learned that I can be more open-hearted and more gracious when I have the space I need to take care of myself and to give space for my soul, and to not always be in interactive mode with other people, whether it's my team or my community. And when I am in that kind of constant availability, constant communication, I get stressed out. I have a very tight feeling in my body and in my nervous system. And like I said, I just do not think as clearly. I cannot feel my heart as much. And so I've had to learn over the years different ways to create this structure for myself so that I am engaged in the world. So I'm available to my team, So I'm available to my community, but not so available that then I'm not able to actually share the best of myself with people because my business relies on me. And so if I'm not in good shape, my business isn't going to be in good shape and I'm not going to be able to serve others. And then really, what's the point? And I've worked with people on my team who have not fully understood this, who have not fully supported this. And that has been challenging. And obviously, those relationships haven't worked out. Again, this is not a conventional business. This is not a conventional way of running the business. And I'm grateful that I did have one business mentor several years ago who really runs her business and her life in a similar way and was able to give me some really important feedback that I've stuck with over the years. Again, it's unconventional. Different team members haven't liked it, have pushed back against it. But this is what I need to do to take care of myself and to do this work in a sustainable way. So basically, as of right now, I have 2 days a week, which are like my extroverted days. Those are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I see clients on those days and I teach my courses on those days. I have meetings with my team. I do podcast interviews on those days. And it used to be, before I dialed my business down in 2018, it used to be 1 day a week, just Wednesdays when I did that. And I'm actually moving back to that in the fall because I'm cutting back on my one-on-one clients in the fall. So I'm going to move back to 1 day a week. And on that same day of the week is when I also do project management with my team, kind of go through our project management software and get up to date on everything in there, have our team meeting. And then 1 week a month, I have no meetings and I do not teach. And this is something I haven't been implementing for a while because I've been in more of a building up phase again these past few years, but I'm implementing this again starting this fall. 1 week a month, which is like my introverted week. It's just time to work on the business rather than in the business, to really recalibrate my nervous system, to give my students and clients time for integration, give my team time for integration. And then I have 2 months a year when I do not teach. So I can really just recharge in that way. I have mornings to myself. And I really notice that the quality of my work starts to diminish when these boundaries get worn down for too long, because sometimes these boundaries need to shift if we're in a program launch or if I'm training a new team member or something like that. And then I know that I can't go for too long without returning back to these boundaries. Otherwise, I'm going to get into that more tightened, hardened place. And things are not going to work well for anyone when that happens. So I've really learned that I need to work with people, both my clients and my students and my team members, who really get this and respect this. And then I've had to end relationships when just consistently that's not happening, but that's okay. You know, that we just have a different way of understanding what we need. And again, really validating for myself, I am a highly sensitive person. I am very introverted. This is a heart-centered, soul-based business. This is not a usual kind of business. And while it might be unconventional to run a business in this way, I have learned through trial and error that this is what I need to do. I need to be plugged into my heart and embodying my soul to actually be of service to other people. I need to be giving to myself regularly, nourishing myself in order to be able to show up and give that and nourish other people. So these boundaries, again, they don't become clear overnight. They've become clear over many years, and it's taken time to implement them. So like I'm returning just to 1 day a week of extroverted time after a couple of years of having 2 days a week. And at different times than that, there were even 3 days a week. So there can be different stages that we move in. And now I'm starting to implement having 1 week a month again to myself. And I haven't done that in a long time. So we can have different tiers of implementation, but it's about being willing to assess what you need for your constitution within your season of life, within the season of your business, and to adapt accordingly and to communicate really clearly to people so that people just know these are part of your policies, both your front end policies with your students and clients and your back end policies with your team or any other people that that you work with, contractors, etc. So everyone can be on the same page, and so that you can feel really supported to show up as your best self. So let's recap these 5 big business lessons. The first is to be consistent and to really repeat and rinse over time. This doesn't mean that you don't scrap things when you know that it's right, but just to see what can be repeated, what can be refined. Number 2 is to practice profit first, to really give a role, a percentage to every dollar that comes in, and to be intimate with your income and your expenses. Number 3 is to get the right support, ideally a combination of both a mentor and a community of like-minded people to help you to get where you're wanting to go faster, in a more streamlined way, and in a more enjoyable way. The 4th is to follow your heart and to do things that feel good to you, that feel in alignment, that allow you to feel like your best self. And number 5, to have good boundaries. And having good boundaries is essential to be able to be your best self and to follow your heart.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, change doesn't come from listening alone. I invite you to commit to taking one small or large, courageous action after today's conversation. One step you can take, if you haven't already, is to sign up for my Sunday journal. It's a weekly newsletter filled with inspiration and reflections about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential to help you become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. You can subscribe at programs-sarahavaughnstover.com/journal. And if you found this podcast valuable, please share it with the women in your world. Also, I'd be very grateful if you'd leave a review. It helps others find resources like this, and I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you after listening today. Above all, keep going, and never forget the unique offerings you and your true self bring to the world. Until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support.